spoilerios about spoilerios. Let's roll.
Hello, I'm Sean Baker. Welcome to another edition of Evolution of the Arm. So I just got back late last night from Washington State, where I attended the 25th annual Twin Peaks Fest. First time I'd gone in 17 years, and same two friends went with me. It was awesome. I have this supplemental video I promised last week will go up in the next couple days, but right now I want to get right into 12 because I watched it in the airport, I watched it when I got home, and I'm hot to talk about it. So we start this episode, Let's Rock. We've got Gordon and Albert inducting Tammy into the Blue Rose Task Force. We get some definitive answers as far as, some of the stuff we knew, but it's outlined a little bit better here with the Project Blue Book being disbanded, Blue Rose coming from the mouth of a dying woman who was involved in one of these cases. Love that. The detail as far as Gordon started Blue Rose, gave it to Jeffries, who brought in Albert, Cooper, Chet Desmond. Now that's interesting to me because it immediately took me back to the earliest episodes of Twin Peaks. It might even been the pilot, where Cooper is just coming to town. He's just getting his hands into the Laura Palmer murder, and he calls Gordon and says, "Gordon, give this one to Albert and his team, not Sam." At the time, it just seems like it's a preference or there's an efficiency thing or whatever the case may be. Now, if you look at this, in Fire Walk with Me, in Deer Meadow, Chet Desmond goes in with Sam Stanley. The Blue Rose code is given to him at the airport with Lil, my mother's sister's girl. Sam asks about it, Chet can't tell him about it. Now you'd think in this case that's probably a handicap for Chet Desmond. When they part ways and Sam takes the body back to headquarters, he says, "Agent Desmond, there's something that is bothering me. You're going back for the Blue Rose, right?" And then Chet Desmond disappears. Now, Cooper, just getting into the Laura Palmer case, tells Gordon, "Go to Albert, not Sam." I actually now think that was his coded message that this is Blue Rose. Which then makes me think there's so much backstory. We know that this Blue Rose Task Force, okay, yeah, no brainer, it's been there. We have a little bit more concrete idea of who's involved, but there's all these stories and cases that we don't know about that these specific people were involved in and worked. And so it's just interesting. It really fills something in. And then they bring in Diane, red curtains, they deputize her. They're not entrusting her. They're giving her rope to hang herself. They obviously, because they're monitoring the text, they know. She's going to end up going to Twin Peaks. We see that at the end with the GPS. We don't know what's going to happen. But I still say she's Bob. She even said, "Let's rock." So it just feels that way, right? Sarah Palmer's scenes are the best in the episode. They were really, really awesome. We get the scene that we had in the trailer of her pushing a shopping cart down aisle in the grocery. She buys a lot of Smirnoff. She has a complete freak out in front of these cashiers, right? It becomes very apparent to me at the end of the freak out when she leaves without taking her groceries with her. There's two people in her head, because it sounds like as she's freaking out, another one's like, "Sarah, leave this place. Get the keys," or whatever it says, but it seems like something else stepped in and was controlling her. Now, she may have just been addressing herself in third person, we don't know, but I'm thinking there's somebody in there, and I think it might be Wyndham Earle. Now, it doesn't exactly feel right to me, but Wyndham Earle used her as a vessel before. If you remember the second season finale, Cooper goes into the Black Lodge, Earl's got him in there, and there's a bit where Major Briggs and his wife are in the double R eating. Dr. Jacoby brings in the widow Palmer, sits her down. She has a message for Major Briggs, and it's Wyndham Earle speaking through her with the lodge lilt. "I'm in the Black Lodge with Dale Cooper," or something like that. So he has been inside her somehow before. Back to the grocery store freak out. As she's freaking out, she says to the cashiers, "Were you here when they were brought in?" Now she's freaking out. The trigger is this turkey jerky, right? And there's definitely some carnivorous something going on with Sarah Palmer, because the last time we saw her, she was watching that very violent nature documentary with those lions ripping the other animal to shreds, and now here's the beef jerky setting her off. But she says, "Were you here when they were brought in?" She's not talking about the beef jerky. It sounds to me like she's talking about some kind of an infiltrating presence. My first thought was like doppelgangers. Maybe this can explain why there's all these people that we keep seeing, like at the end of this episode, that we don't know who they are, and they're talking about all these other people. We're getting these weird thin slices of it that doesn't make sense. I don't know. But I definitely think she's referring to an infiltrating or invading presence. And then she says, "Something's gonna happen, bad things happen, something bad happened to me," or she says, "Something happened to me." I don't think she's necessarily referring to her husband killing her daughter. I think she's referring possibly to something that happened way previously, and which made me think, is she the girl in part 8 that the frog roach crawls into her mouth? And then think about this whole thing, like, two members of the Palmer family went through or were affected by the lodge entities in some way, it actually starts to seem to me kind of ludicrous that Sarah Palmer wasn't also somehow affected or had some kind of contact. Then I start thinking she has these like her mother's weird, she saw things, Sarah Palmer had some kind of psychic whatever, and it could be because she's already been touched by one of these things. We go to the hospital. Just a quick aesthetic thing. The tracking shots that lead to us seeing Miriam reminded me a lot of the hospital tracking shots in the second season premiere where Ronette wakes up at the end and you get these tracking shots through the hallway. It may have even been the same angle, I'm not sure. So that Miriam needs an operation. This leads right into Sheriff Truman talking to Ben Horn. Really like this scene. Ben talking about how Richard did not have a father. After Sheriff Truman leaves, he goes through this whole thing with Beverly, his secretary, talking about his father, and he dwells on father. And juxtaposed with the fact that we get Audrey finally in this episode, it made me think, what if Audrey's not Richard's mother? What if it's Donna? Now, as a diehard fan, the only one subplot that I hate is the Doc Hayward is not Donna's father, it's Ben Horn. I hate it. I have no tolerance for it. But how cool would it be if they took a bad subplot and flipped it so now Richard's Donna's son? It would just blow me away. I kind of don't think that's what it is. The old adage, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. If you look at this, the father, since Ben's expounding on this, the father is the missing link. So who's missing? Well, it's either John Justice Wheeler. He and Audrey have sex. He goes away, maybe dies. Audrey gets trapped in the explosion. We don't really know what happens. Or it could have been the bad Coop thing. I've been reluctant to latch onto this as a definitive thing, but we had the idea that bad Coop was seen leaving the room, the intensive care where Audrey was the night of the second season finale. And there's been talk online of the fact that he may have sexually assaulted her. And so then Richard's father, who Ben says, he never had one, it's because it was a rape and they didn't know who it was. So that would also make sense. We'll see. This episode's getting a lot of hate right now. And definitely the first time through, it starts so great and then it grinds. And the thing that grinds it to a halt is, okay, does anyone know to get this Bordeaux 1105? Because it sounds great, right? This scene, I love the scene, but coupled with the fact that we go from that and then soon after we get the Audrey scene and then we get the Roadhouse scene with a bunch of people we don't know talking about a bunch of people we don't know, it kind of affected the episode. This gives a lot more credence to, again, the idea this is not 1 hour episodes but an 18-hour movie, and if you slice movies up into disparate pieces, you're going to get some weird viewing and continuity, and that's probably what we got. But I'd like to say about the Audrey scene, I mean, I want to say I hated it. I think there'll be more and it will make better sense. It'll go down a little bit easier in the long run. Here's the one thing that unravels that a little bit. They're talking about these people, and they're talking about Billy and Chuck and the truck, and it made me think, so Billy is probably the, hey, anybody seen Billy from the end of episode 7? Same person. Ted Dowling plays the farmer in the credits whose truck Richard stole and hit the little boy with. It seems like this is the farmer Chuck. It doesn't exactly line up because Charlie tells Audrey Billy stole Chuck's truck, and it's confusing. I'm having trouble even wading through it after 2 viewings and going over this before, so I don't know. I have faith the Audrey scene will make sense soon. All right, see you in the trees.